computer. Hi, my name is Scott Simmons. I'm the pastor at Faith United Church of Christ, and I'm here with Dee Dee. And Dee Dee has found our church just a few months ago, but we've made a pretty strong connection, I feel, thus far. And I'm excited to have you as part of our congregation. And would you just share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get down to the topic for the day.
Sure. I'm Dee Dee Gowan. I'm a 55-year-old empty nester. Sort of my quick bio. I went to Purdue. I'm a Boilermaker. I joined the Navy after that, did a tour in Hawaii, a tour at the Pentagon where I was a briefer, and then I came home. Actually, my last duty station was here, and then I went to law school at night, became a lawyer, joined a corporate law firm, got married, had a few children, and really just had this moment where I wanted to move into social justice with my career path. And so I left the big corporate law firm so that I could go and do my heart work, which is, advocating for people that are unable to advocate for themselves and pursue social justice.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. And you are using your skills and talents to help those who maybe don't have the power to really help themselves in the moment. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And that's where I personally feel like God called me, and it's how he made me. It's the 8 in me, actually.
Yeah. So you saw the
Yeah, I mean, it's the 8 in me,
yeah.
Seeking social justice. So I've been doing that for about 16 and a half years.
Okay. Yeah. So you are an 8 on the Enneagram, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that means and what it means to you?
Sure. So my understanding of the 8 is that we are very powerful. We are drawn to energy, passion, and powerful and impacting and moving things. And so that's sort of who I am, both for the good and sometimes not so good. But, so, I mean, last week I saw a news article from Wish TV about somebody who had been wronged by the IRS and is looking at a $750,000 tax debt. So of course I called them and said, let me help this guy. Sure enough, now I am. Yeah. That's how it 8 works.
Yeah. So it probably gets you into all sorts of situations.
And it gets you excited too. I mean, yes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thought was really important when I started learning about the 8s is that 8s are sometimes called the challenger, and like they have a need to be against. They sometimes can be perceived as like forceful, threatening, even angry at times. But the thing that really drives an 8 is not anger or it's passion. It's that an 8 gets caught up with a really strong passion for a cause. And when that is healthy, that makes, that is kind of the spirit of God's, passion, like the God of the Exodus, sort of like I heard their cry and I'm going to do something about it.
Exactly. And I think that's the journey for the 8 is to learn to, take that passion on and feel it and do it in a healthier delivery. I can remember the early days of advocating for my clients, and my boss used to laugh about Dee Dee yelling to the IRS, in her office, and I used to do that. So I would be furious. So I would be advocating by, yelling at him on the phone. And I've learned that that's just not productive, right? So, I don't yell at the IRS on the phone anymore, right?
Yeah, they don't care.
Right. It's not, it's not zealously advocating for my client if I'm, yelling at somebody.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that in my early years, we laugh about that now.
So how did you learn that, or what was it like when you were an early 8, so to speak, a younger version of yourself?
Well, I like to tell people I'm a 2 before the head learner because, sometimes when you come on too strong, you learn that it's not effective and it's counterproductive. And if you're fighting for people, but you're coming on too strong, you're hurting people. And if your whole goal is to protect people and seek social justice, then coming on too strong is not effective.
Yeah, you can end up alienating people, and
absolutely.
Yeah. There's biblical character that is an unhealthy 8 that I'm fascinated with is Samson from the Bible.
Yeah.
And there's this early scene in his story where it's like the first story about him as an adult. He sees a Philistine woman who's the enemy's. He wants to go marry her. He goes down to marry her. He gets assigned like 30 groomsmen. Don't get it. And his way of interacting with the groomsmen is to give them a riddle to like challenge them. And they can't figure it out. And his wife, long story short, ends up finding out and then kind of betrays him. But I was just thinking, and I think that you and I talked about this when we were together. It's like contact, what was it called? Contact intimacy or something like that. Like 8's, a way that they look to relate sometimes is it can be perceived as aggressive or experienced as aggressive. And they're trying to get close to somebody, but instead they're pushing them away.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a good example, but I know early on when I played games at my kitchen table with my kids, I'm going at it and we're, and over time I realized, it was way more important simply to play the game and be with them than it was to, get into this mental, aggressive, competitive, who's going to win. Yeah. It took me a while to learn that lesson.
I'm a very high 8. And so, this past Sunday when we had kickball at the church, I was like really encouraging everybody to play and our adults did. And it was fantastic. And I wanted to play, but I was also reluctant because I could totally see myself like firing a ball at some child's head because I want to win too badly. And like that's me like playing and being engaged, but it's not served me well in the past.
I've never had great sports skills for me. So I would do that in mental, like in game playing or intellectually, and had to catch what I was doing. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you become more self-aware of your power, so to speak. Is that a fair way? And you've learned how to control it better?
I think I get better over time, but I can still, so I went to a new employer last year, and a couple of weeks ago we had our first, and now things have changed again. So it'll be a while before we have another. We had an outreach event where they held a special day. And so my boss, came and I came and we went in, and all of a sudden I caught myself, taking charge, saying where desks go, where things go. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I'm not charged. I'm not the boss. I'm not supposed to do this. So at least now, before I wouldn't have even realized that's what I was doing. But at least now I'm like, oh, wait, you're taking over and it's not your job.
Well, was there a time before when it would not only be that you didn't realize it, but if you did, you would be like, well, somebody's got to, like,
absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. That's I get that. I have a little bit of that going on for myself. Yeah, in a sense like that is, I'm fascinated with this idea that like for whatever your dominant type is on the Enneagram, your strength and your weakness are two sides of the same coin.
Yes. Right? I would say I was told that in my marriage counseling. It was the best piece of advice before Tony and I got married, was to understand that your strength, the opposite side of it, was your weakness, and to get that and to appreciate that in the other one. To really appreciate when you're frustrated with each other that you loved the positive side of it.
Yeah. What's Tony on the Enneagram?
A 9.
He's a 9. Ooh, that's next week.
Peacemaker.
Yeah.
And 8s love 9s.
Do you?
They ground us. We appreciate them.
But aren't they slow to action?
Yeah, but we're pulling them along. That's our job. And they're pulling us back. It's a good.
They're saying slow down.
They're getting us out of the mess we jumped into. And when we jump into a good thing, they come with us.
It's interesting because you're both people of the gut triad, and therefore like driven by instinct and a deep sense of what's right and what's wrong.
Yes. And it's really interesting because I will say I've always been a gut person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I even feel it in my gut when I'm making calls and decisions. It's definitely making decisions from my gut and what I think is right,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's your danger, is you can get so convinced.
Yes. And I can be wrong.
Do you know what the root sin of the 8 is?
It says lust. I really don't like that word. I think the better word is power. See, there I go, challenging the Enneagram.
Hey, the challenge is challenging the theory of the Enneagram. What do you know?
I like the word power better because I don't really feel like I connect with lust, but absolutely power and passion and being, assertive and aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to, I think I'm going to use lust when I preach, and I was trying to make sense of it.
Okay.
And so Richard Rohr also uses shamelessness. And the way he talks about it and the way I'm understanding it is lust, not just as around sex, but it can be lust for anything, power, money, control, and it's unregulated passion. If you're driven by passion, as an 8 is, you get in trouble when that passion becomes unregulated, when you become so convinced of your cause that you will deny the dignity of others, the rightful standing. Or as I put it, it's like love will sacrifice themselves to benefit others. Lust will sacrifice others to benefit themselves. They're so unregulated in the passion. And so in Samson's story, he becomes so convinced that he's been wronged. No, actually, in that story of the riddle, he ends up losing the wager. And so what does he do? He now owes a bunch of money. Well, he owes a bunch of linen, cloths, and items of clothes. And so he goes and strikes down 30 guys and steals their stuff. It's like, he's just not thinking about other people. It's him and his cause and his thing. And
interestingly, I can share with you that. So I also happen to be on the school board because that's a crazy thing that 8s do when they become empty nesters and think they have extra time.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that I have a friend who's an 8, and I'm reflecting on that. And he was coming at me. So I was on the receiving end of an 8 recently. And I get it now. I get, and I don't think he fully gets coming at me with an 8, but it helps me see what it's like to be on the receiving end of somebody going, full force with their passion because they think that's the right cause. Like their heart it's the right cause, but we have to be careful that we're not running, I have to be careful that I don't run over people with my passion.
Yeah. And it's like, I think the dignity of other people, or the hey, somebody else might actually have a viewpoint. Or I thought of the metaphor of like an 8 when they are in their root sin is holding on to their views like this, and they're ready to knock you out if you threaten it, right? Where the fruit of the Spirit is innocence, and innocence has the capacity to trust and hold their judgments more loosely.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is some humility and some wisdom, and they realize that while I have power, I'm not the all powerful. I don't have to do it all on my own.
And I'll miss out on other people's insights and wisdom and what I have to learn from them if I don't.
Yeah. Or they're going to just go running from you.
Yeah, that too.
Or you just might destroy them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think about that moment, of like when you're having an argument with your spouse or somebody, and it's kind of going back and forth, and then you come up with the haymaker comment, and you're just like, wha-bam, and then they're done. And the whole thing, like the whole exchange is over, and it's just you let your cause and your passion get too high, and now you've destroyed somebody that you wanted to be with. Yeah,
absolutely.
Not to say I've ever done that.
No. Well, and I'll tell you, one of my one of my two children learned to write me letters.
Yes.
They each learned a different way to communicate, so that, and good for them, because I could be intense in a, argument setting. So one learned to write me letters, which were very effective, and the other would wait until later and then readdress the situation. And both of them learned a way to, work with when I've been a little too intense.
Yeah, so that's interesting because like the letter writing, so like I wrote down a quote from something I was reading. It says that very few eights willingly retreat into silence. Like they're not going to back down. And
not
so
in the moment.
Right. And so
not in the heat.
So the only thing that makes them go silent and become reflective is if they are somehow rendered powerless. So they're sick, or they get imprisoned and put in solitary confinement, which happens to eights, or in a sense, right, like the letter writing, like you can't scream back at a letter or use your powerful persuasive lawyer tactics, right?
And it causes you to reflect, because it's, you can read it over and over. Or my other child would wait until later and then ask me, calmly, peacefully. And and David would do that and would realize that that he could circle back and have a conversation again when when after a little bit of time had passed, maybe an hour later or something.
Yeah. How has guilt played out for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I can feel intensely guilty. I mean, I think one time someone said to me, I think I'm an empath too. I don't know if all eights are empaths, but I feel deeply. So just as I feel passionately, I can feel deeply guilty. I can feel deeply sad. I can feel deeply angry. So I think I run the gamut of deep emotions. I can process through them and, but when I feel them, they're usually intense.
Yeah. Like the unhealthy eight, if they are rendered silent and they can't aim their energy at somebody else, they will turn inward on themselves.
Yes.
And it says that eights, if they're in that position, they're really unhealthy. They're a high risk of suicide. Like that's just.
Well, and where I go is to prayer. I mean, I sit with God with that and just have learned to ask for his mercy and grace for me.
Yeah.
For the thinking going on in my head. Yeah.
That's interesting, because that's the invitation. This is all mostly coming from Richard Rohr's book on this, but the invitation is to truth or mercy. And I thought about it in terms of the eight, the invitation for like you, the eight, to become merciful. But now I'm thinking about it differently. It's the invitation to receive God's mercy.
Well, I only have it to give it away if I abundantly receive it. So I've learned that I have grace and patience and kindness to give away if I sit before the Lord and fill up.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think that's the way it works for all of us, but it's really like present, like if you're, I've found in times that those who tend to be the most judgmental, boy, their internal life is rough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, like one of the reasons God wants you to embrace grace is so that you can in turn give it out.
Absolutely.
So like the pass, so to speak, the forgiveness, it's for you, but it's about something bigger than you. And so
Absolutely.
Sometimes we're so self-centered. We're like, well, I don't deserve it or whatever. And God's like, you don't, but you need it. And the world needs you to have it so that you can be part of the kingdom. Bringing that around. Yeah.
And I think I've learned too, forgiving others is for me. I heard that for many years, but forgiving others, especially those who are not apologetic and are not asking for forgiveness, it's a whole lot easier to forgive someone who's asking for forgiveness. But learning to forgive everyone is for me.
Yeah. It keeps your heart.
Yeah, it keeps my heart healthy.
Yes.
And in a good place. Yeah.
I wanted to see if this other thing, I'm kind of prepping for my message, using this for that a little bit, but this other story, another piece lands for you. And if it doesn't, I'm going to have to rewrite my message. So
Sure.
Careful. So the story of the centurion in Matthew chapter 8, he's a powerful man, but he comes to Jesus and he's concerned about his servant. So an 8, a healthy 8, has a high concern for those who are oppressed or those who are sick, that sort of thing. And Jesus says, "Shall I come with you and heal him?" And the truth that I think an 8 needs to know is that there is, you have power, but there's more power. There's somebody you can turn to as well, right? Somebody that you might need.
Absolutely.
At the same time, it's a brilliant example of how one of the ways to really deal with an 8 is that if you try to go toe to toe with an 8, you're in trouble. Rather, the best way to work with an 8 is to try to cooperate with them. And like in first century, Palestine, that centurion could have just straight up grabbed Jesus and taken him. Like Romans were doing that to people all the time. So Jesus knew, like, I mean, he's all powerful and everything. I guess Jesus could have gone toe to toe with anybody, but he knew that cooperating with an 8 when they come demanding is the best approach rather than taking an oppositional position.
Absolutely. And that's what an 8 wants. And you can confront an 8 because that's what we do. And we're going to listen to you. You can challenge us. We might even get excited if you challenge us.
Yeah.
So that's what the 8 wants you to do. It's when you turn away from the 8 and reject them that it really breaks them down. But partnering with them, and you're gonna get the best of them.
Yeah. And then the grace is, do you know the story of the centurion?
I don't remember, but you can remind me.
Yeah. So he says to Jesus, I don't deserve to have you come to my house. You just say the word, he'll be healed. And he says, because I'm a man under authority and I have people under my authority. And if I say come, they come. If I say go, they go. And then Jesus's response is that he's amazed. And he says to his disciples, "I've never seen anybody with such great faith." And I think that's the grace for an 8, is that there's appreciation for your power and your courage. And here this centurion, he's coming out of his day, humbling himself before Jesus, asking for Jesus's help, all to help somebody else. He's using his strength, his access. And then he appreciates that while he's got power, there's you got power over people, there's people with power over you. Ultimately, there's a higher power. And Jesus is like, whoa, check him out,
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we all need appreciation, but I was wondering, like, for a love language for an 8, like, is it like...
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my kids will tell you sometimes when I'm the maddest, I'll say, you don't appreciate what you're not being appreciative. That might be a theme in their upbringing.
That's
so
funny.
Absolutely feeling, 8s want to feel appreciated. Yeah. I mean,
because you're fighting all these battles for the good cause, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in my larger extended family, when somebody has a big issue and they need help, it's my door that they come to. And I love that. I love being the one, that people come to for help. And then all I want out of it is, to know that they appreciate me. If I know that they appreciate it, that's great.
Yeah. That's all
That's all I need.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too. This is super fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I hope that you can make it to the conversation after church to talk some more about this. And I'm going to end it here, and then we can kind of debrief for a minute afterwards.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Thanks,
great.
Dee Dee.
Thanks.